The hum of a bicycle chain was the only sound as Vic Van Allen pedaled home, the last vestiges of daylight fading from the sky. He found his wife, Melinda, waiting for him on the stairs, a gentle smile playing on her lips. But her welcome was fleeting. Without a single word, she simply turned and drifted into their bedroom, leaving Vic in the quiet of the entryway. Just a few days prior, the couple had been caught up in the usual pre-party scramble. Vic and Melinda were on the hunt for a nanny for their daughter Trixie, since they were heading to a friend's bash. Melinda, always the center of attention, had even coaxed Vic into helping her pick out the perfect dress for the night, and then, with a playful nudge, asked him to assist her with her shoes. Later, as they arrived at the lively party, Melinda wasted no time. She smoothly detached herself from Vic, her gaze already fixed on a young man named Joel, whom she playfully called an old friend. They wasted no time making their exit, heading straight for the back garden, seeking a private spot. Vic, for his part, remained surprisingly calm. There was no outward flicker of anger or disappointment as he watched his wife disappear with another man. He simply followed, a silent observer, eventually finding himself peeking through a window as Melinda and Joel openly engaged in a passionate embrace on a park bench. Melinda seemed completely unbothered by the public display, even brazenly flaunting her intimacy with Joel right in front of Vic, and indeed in front of the other party guests. To twist the knife, she even went so far as to tease Vic, openly telling him just how boring he was. Her antics certainly caught the eye of the other attendees, including Mary, a mutual friend of Vic and Melinda. Mary, her eyebrows raised, quietly inquired of Vic if he knew the young man Melinda had been cavorting with. Vic, cool as a cucumber, simply replied that the man was just a friend of Melinda's. A short while later, Grant, another friend, approached Vic with a sigh, noting that Melinda was seriously tipsy and making quite a scene near the piano. Vic could only offer a resigned sigh himself, watching his wife as she continued to be the undisputed center of attention, belting out songs and pounding away on the piano in the middle of the crowded party. Amidst the swirling crowd, Vic crossed paths with Joel. The young man thanked Vic, quite earnestly, for allowing him such a delightful evening with Melinda. Instead of a fiery outburst or a hint of jealousy, Vic merely responded with a calm demeanor, assuring Joel that he didn't mind in the slightest. Then, without missing a beat, Vic dropped a bombshell. He confessed that before Joel, Melinda had another lover, a guy named Martin. Vic then casually revealed that Martin had vanished a month prior, and in a shocking twist, admitted he was the one responsible for Martin's disappearance, claiming to have killed him. Seeing Joel's eyes widen with genuine fear, Vic quickly backtracked, insisting it was all just a joke, but Joel wasn't buying it. He genuinely believed Vic had offed Martin. Fearful for his own well-being, Joel swiftly made his excuses to Melinda and beat a hasty retreat from the party. Noticing Joel's sudden, strange behavior, Melinda's suspicions immediately fell on her husband. She confronted him, demanding to know what he had said to Joel. Vic, ever calm, lied through his teeth, claiming he hadn't said a thing. Upon returning home, Vic retreated to his private sanctuary. It was a room filled with snails. These slow-moving creatures were his only source of comfort, his only escape from the mounting troubles in his life. A few days later, after dropping Trixie off at school, Vic ran into a friend who playfully, yet pointedly, called him a murderer. The friend then revealed that the conversation between Vic and Joel had spread like wildfire, and now their mutual friends were starting to seriously question the truth behind Vic's chilling joke. Grant, a voice of reason among their circle, advised Vic that it would be far better to rein in his wife's wild behavior than to make risky jokes like the one he'd told Joel. Arriving back at the house, Vic discovered that his infamous joke had indeed reached Melinda's ears, and she was clearly seething. Melinda sternly warned him against threatening or even joking about Martin's disappearance. Then, in a move that would prove utterly awkward, she announced her plan to invite Joel over for dinner, effectively forcing Vic to apologize for his words and behavior. The dinner table that evening was thick with an uneasy silence, punctuated only by the subtle jabs Vic and Melinda threw at each other. Melinda, with a strained smile, suggested Vic ought to act normally around Joel, but Vic immediately countered, indicating that if she truly wanted normalcy, his first act would be to ensure Joel wasn't involved with her or joining them for dinner at all. The tension in their conversation steadily escalated until Melinda, seemingly reaching her limit, directed their daughter Trixie to go to sleep, insisting Vic tell her a story to hasten her slumber. This maneuver was clearly Melinda's way of securing uninterrupted time alone with Joel. After settling Trixie, Vic found himself watching from above as Melinda and Joel's intimacy unfolded downstairs. A clear pang of jealousy crossed his face. Soon after, when Joel was left momentarily alone, Vic approached him, offering a seemingly sincere apology for his earlier joke. But the apology quickly took a dark turn as Vic calmly launched into a chillingly detailed account of how he had brutally taken Martin's life with a hammer. With a seemingly playful but deeply unsettling warning, he then urged Joel to leave his house immediately before Vic's temper got the better of him, and he did something far worse, just like he had done to Martin. Sometime later, Vic and his family attended a large party. It was there that he crossed paths with Don Wilson, a writer renowned for his conspiracy theory novels. As their conversation progressed, Don began to display an increasing discomfort around Vic. Remembering Vic's reputation for joking about Martin's death and claiming to be the one who offed the man, Don even went so far as to accuse Vic of being responsible for Martin's disappearance. Despite the widespread knowledge among most partygoers that Vic's earlier confession to Joel had simply been a macabre jest intended to scare the young man. At the same party, Vic also met Kelly, Don's wife, and the two instantly clicked. Vic, who wasn't typically much of a social butterfly, seemed unusually relaxed in her company, even asking Kelly to dance. On the drive home after the big party, Vic openly expressed his burgeoning interest in Kelly, admitting that he felt a strong sense of comfort and attraction toward her. These words immediately ignited a fierce spark of jealousy in Melinda, who felt her position in Vic's life being threatened by his newfound attention to Kelly. Determined to reassert her appeal, Melinda resolved to prove to Vic that she was still the most captivating and valuable woman in his life. Melinda initiated a game of flirtation, pushing the boundaries even to the point of physically pleasuring Vic. He, for his part, seemed to enjoy the intense atmosphere they created. Then Melinda settled back, uttering a dramatic pronouncement that she'd rather die in the car than endure hearing him say that Kelly was more attractive than her. Despite the clear undercurrent of upset and manipulation between them, this husband and wife continued their twisted dance. The next day, Vic and Melinda were watching their daughter play soccer when Vic's phone buzzed with an incoming call from the bank. The news was unsettling. Melinda had transferred $3,000 to a man named Charlie Delisle. It turned out the money was payment for private piano lessons Melinda had been taking with Charlie. Upon hearing this information, Vic wasted no time, immediately setting out to investigate Charlie further. After gathering enough intel, he headed to the restaurant where Charlie worked as a pianist. Shortly after Vic's arrival, Melinda also showed up, clearly there to meet Charlie. Observing the scene, Vic began to seriously suspect that Charlie was his wife's new lover. Returning home, he discovered Melinda's wedding ring lying casually in the sink, as if she had deliberately removed it and left it there for him to find. Soon after, Vic happened to catch a news report. Martin had been found dead. He immediately shared the shocking news with Melinda, who reacted with genuine surprise upon learning of Martin's demise. The next day, Vic presented Trixie with a new dog to keep at home. Then on his way back from an errand, Vic spotted Charlie carrying a large bouquet of flowers, clearly intended for Melinda. Upon arriving home, he found the very same flowers prominently displayed on their dining table, igniting a fresh wave of anger within him. Without a second thought, he tossed the flowers into the trash. After that, Vic went to meet a friend, confiding in him that despite maintaining his relationship with Melinda, his heart was, in truth, completely broken. Meanwhile, Melinda, seemingly oblivious or uncaring about her husband's feelings, was making out with Charlie in his car. The next day, Vic was a coiled spring of restlessness, waiting impatiently for Melinda to return. She hadn't come home all night, and this time, he was absolutely determined to confront her about the sheer madness of their relationship. When Melinda finally walked through the door, Vic immediately grilled her about her whereabouts and demanded an explanation for the money she'd sent to Charlie. His patience had completely evaporated. He lashed out at Melinda, urging her to cut ties with her lover, but his words seemed to simply bounce off her, leaving her unfazed. Sometime later, Vic and Melinda attended another party, and, as fate would have it, Charlie was there too. Without a hint of hesitation, Melinda brazenly introduced Charlie to the other guests, even inviting him to play the piano. Charlie, a truly gifted pianist, delivered a stunning performance, captivating the guests who happily swayed and danced along. Vic, however, watched the entire display, a storm of anger brewing behind his eyes, his gaze locked on Melinda. The party stretched on until the stroke of midnight, with Vic relentlessly monitoring his wife's every move. Finally, he observed Melinda and Charlie slipping away together toward the swimming pool. By the poolside, Melinda and Charlie were openly affectionate. Melinda appeared utterly intoxicated by the attention and popularity, completely shedding any last shred of guilt about her behavior toward her husband. Shortly after, a torrential downpour erupted, sending the guests scattering from the pool area, leaving only Vic and Charlie. Once everyone else had vanished, Vic approached Charlie, his face a mask of simmering rage. In the swimming pool, Vic finally unleashed all his pent-up fury, brutally ending Charlie's life. After the deed was done, he calmly rejoined the party, blending back in with his friends and the other guests as if nothing had transpired. Charlie's lifeless body simply floated in the pool, unnoticed by anyone. A few moments later, Melinda, finally starting to feel a flicker of worry, searched every room in the house for Charlie, but he was nowhere to be found. She then headed toward the swimming pool, and the moment her eyes fell upon Charlie's body floating in the water, a horrified scream tore from her throat. All the guests rushed out to help, Vic among them. They lifted Charlie's body from the pool, but tragically, the wet, slippery floor caused the rescuers to lose their footing. Charlie's head slammed against the floor, inadvertently providing Vic with a grim alibi. The head injury, not the drowning, could now be blamed for Charlie's demise. The police soon arrived at the scene and launched their investigation. Melinda immediately accused Vic of being Charlie's killer, but most people at the party were convinced that Charlie's death was a tragic accident in the swimming pool. Don, however, who was also present, held a different opinion. He suspected that Charlie had been dead before his body was even pulled from the water, but after a heated argument and a glaring lack of sufficient evidence, the police ultimately ruled Charlie's death an accident, officially closing the case. A few days after the incident, Vic resumed his regular cycling routine, but a persistent feeling began to gnaw at him. Someone was stalking him from a distance. Later that day at Trixie's school, Kelly approached him, revealing that her husband, Don, firmly believed Vic was the perpetrator behind Charlie's death. Don had even been inviting Melinda to their house frequently to discuss the matter. After hearing Kelly's explanation, Vic extended an invitation to Kelly and Don for dinner at his house. His true intention was to confront Don directly about his accusations, emphatically stating that Don needed to stop spreading such baseless slander. Though Don seemed to be getting a little spooked, he stubbornly maintained his conviction that Vic was indeed involved in Charlie's death. The next day, while taking his daughter to school, Vic spotted a car he'd suspected of constantly tailing him, parked directly in front of a local restaurant. He scrutinized the vehicle, and noticing a camera inside, became even more convinced that he was being watched. When he entered the restaurant to find the car's owner, he was surprised to see Melinda seated at a table with the man who appeared to be the car's owner. Vic approached them and calmly took a seat at their table. After getting to know the man a bit, Vic realized that this person wasn't Melinda's new lover, but the individual who had been following him. Although the man introduced himself as David, a psychologist about to open a practice in the city, Vic strongly suspected he was a private detective hired by Don to investigate Charlie's death. After the tense meeting at the restaurant, Vic presented Don with proof of a money transfer from Melinda's account to Don's, asserting that Don had become far too entangled in their private affairs. Upon hearing this, Kelly was enraged and deeply embarrassed by her husband's actions. Later, having returned from Don's house, Vic spotted his wife with another man who appeared to be her new lover and immediately began to follow them discreetly. That night, while bathing Trixie, the little girl innocently brought up Charlie's death, even mentioning that she knew her father was the one responsible. Vic, reacting with a casual tone, simply asked her to keep it a secret. The next day, Vic extended an invitation to Melinda's new boyfriend to come to their house. It was then that Vic discovered the man was Tony, an ex-lover of Melinda's. Melinda, utterly unconcerned with her husband's feelings, casually mentioned all the things she'd been doing with Tony. She brazenly displayed her intimacy with him right in front of Vic, showing not a hint of guilt. Another afternoon, Vic encountered Tony walking alone and informed him that Melinda was waiting for him at a specific location. Tony, seemingly trusting, accepted Vic's offer of a ride. However, instead of taking Tony to meet Melinda, Vic drove him to a secluded spot in the forest near the river, a place he often visited while cycling. It was a rocky gorge overlooking a shared hidden spot. Upon reaching the edge of the cliff, Vic abruptly stopped the car and forced Tony out. He then launched a brutal assault on Tony, causing the man to fall into the gorge, dying instantly. After confirming Tony was dead, Vic moved his body to the river's edge, took Tony's wallet, and submerged the body. Having finished the grim task, Vic returned home as if nothing untoward had happened. The following day, Vic invited Melinda and their daughter for a picnic at the very same location where he had killed Tony. There, Vic displayed a rare romantic side, presenting Melinda with a gift, her old photo album. On the last page of the album, Vic had penned a heartfelt expression of love, seemingly mending the cracks in their relationship, if only for a moment. A short while later, Vic went looking for Trixie near the river's edge. It was then that he saw Tony's body resurface. Without a word to Melinda, he immediately decided to take them home. On the way back, Melinda realized she had left her favorite scarf behind at the picnic spot. Vic casually stated he would retrieve it later, giving him the perfect opportunity to deal with Tony's corpse. As soon as they arrived home, Melinda entered the room where Vic kept his pet snails and was shocked to find Tony's wallet there. She immediately suspected Vic's involvement in Tony's disappearance. She quickly contacted Don, informing him that Vic was heading to the forest. She then began packing her suitcase, intending to leave, but Trixie, in a childish protest, threw the suitcase into the pool, insisting they stay. Meanwhile, Vic was struggling to keep Tony's body submerged in the river. His efforts were in vain when Don arrived at the location, holding Melinda's scarf. Don, who was increasingly suspected of Vic, tried to approach, but when he spotted Tony's hand in the water, he panicked and immediately bolted from the scene. He was now absolutely convinced that Vic had killed Tony and intended to report him to the police. Realizing his secret was out, Vic pursued Don, who was driving at high speed through the forest. In a tense, high-stakes chase, Vic managed to cut off Don's car by taking a shortcut through the bushes. However, he then found himself stumbling in Don's car's path. Don, who was distracted by texting while driving, was startled to see Tony in front of him. He swerved violently, sending his car careening off the cliff, killing himself. After this horrifying series of events, Vic calmly cycled back home. Upon his arrival, he saw Melinda waiting for him with a smile, but without a word, she left him and went into their bedroom. There, she deliberately burned Tony's wallet and ID cards, a clear gesture indicating her grim determination to bury their dark past.